ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. I know that people are on their prospective campuses. We'll explain what all that looks like in a moment. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lee Smith. I'm the CEO of the Industry School. More importantly, I suppose, tonight is I am absolutely all in, and we'll talk about that later. We're absolutely all in terms of our international service project. It is a project very dear to my heart and incredibly important for the Industry School and the Industry School community. So the first time I went with the Industry School, I think it was 2019. The first time I went, and I've been going ever since. And I'll certainly be there this year as well. So, like I say, my name's Lee, and I'm on the Gold Coast, so I'll come and say good day once I'm finished here. But I'm going to run through a few things tonight, take some questions, hopefully give you a bit of a feel for what the International Service Project is all about. And then from here, obviously explain the next steps. So we'll make a start. So tonight, ISP, as we call it, the International Service Project, why do we do it and what does it all mean? And I'll share a brief story with everybody. So rather than me explain it, I'll give you the story from the words of one of our young people who went in the past. I'll come to that in a moment. Give you some general information. And I say just general information because for those who apply and are selected, we have lots of meetings in the future about what to expect and what to bring and insurance and health and all of those things. We don't need to cover all of those tonight. We're happy to answer questions, obviously, but this isn't the only meeting. This is just the first meeting. We'll talk a little bit into fundraising and what that looks like, and then the next stage is in terms of application selection. Okay, and like I say, obviously I'm online, but people are in the prospective campuses and the staff there with you, so that if you have questions, obviously those can be either asked to me. I'm happy to take questions, but it may be easier for groups to have a bit of a chat on their campus afterwards. Okay, so I will make a start. Kieran is, I think, on the Gold Coast, and might be times where Kieran pauses me or chips in a bit of extra information, and equally Charmaine as well. And I'll introduce those two a little bit later on. Okay, so International Service Project, ISP, Cambodia. We always start, all of our meetings here, we start with what our mission is. So we set our mission over 10 years ago, and it continues to today. So our mission is to create change and opportunity for the critically poor families of Siem Reap, Cambodia, through the technical talents, values, and generosity of the Industry School community. That is the mission. That's what we're setting out to do. Okay, so a little bit of history. The giving is in our DNA at the Industry School. There's lots of activities that take place. We do gift of giving. We do a lot of local service projects. We do a lot of work here in Australia. But also we extend beyond Australian borders, which is where the ISP comes in. So I think I referenced briefly before, we actually started this back in 2013. So for over 10 years, we've been helping in Siem Reap. And we started off with one group going every 2 years when we began. We had one group every 2 years, but obviously the Industry School has grown. We've got 6 schools now, and lots of people who want to be involved and want to help out and to contribute. So now we actually take 2 groups every year, and we've been doing that for the last few years now. And in total, that means that we take somewhere in the region of 50 to 60 people over to Siem Reap every year, which is, it's quite a team. We've built a bit of a community over in Siem Reap, Charmaine, I think it's fair to say. Lots of people know us and recognise the Industry School, which is something that we're very proud of. And in terms of the group, we do things a little differently to many other kind of groups that go over, because we take staff, of course, and we take young people, but we also take industry and employers and sponsors, and lots of different people come with us. We go for around about 10 days. What is 10 days, all in all? And so far, we have built 9 homes and we have completed lots of different projects to help the school with whom we're linked to. So New Hope Cambodia, and which again I'll speak into a little bit more. We've been working with those guys for a long time now, like I say, over 10 years. We know them well, and we know members of the board. They have an international board, and some of whom the directors are here in Australia and across Europe. And so this is not an NGO, non-government organisation that we know really, really well, and our values align. So yeah, we've built 9 houses so far, and like I say, helped the school out with some buildings there. And what will be exciting is this year, we'll get into double figures. So houses number 10 and 11, at the very least, will be built this year, and some project work at the school as well. Also, totaling it all up, in total, we have raised somewhere in the region of $945,000 to date to support this this venture. So again, exciting year as we cross the 1 million mark this year in terms of fundraising, which is pretty exciting. In terms of the next part, like I say, rather than hear my words about why I'm passionate about it, which I am clearly, but a few years back, I spoke to a student, Charlie, and this was after we'd returned. And I spoke to it was a Gold Coast young person, actually. And I said to Charlie, I was talking to him about his experience, and he was telling me, what it meant to him and the kind of impact that it had on him and the impact it had had on his life. And I said, Charlie, I said, would you mind speaking at the event we've got coming up after the project? Would you mind sharing your feelings with parents and employees that came, and tell them about what it meant to you? And he said, sure. So what I'd like to share with you, and this is Charlie's words, not mine, is Charlie's reflection on his journey to Cambodia. So Charlie's words, he said, my experiences there weren't quite as I first imagined just over a year ago, but there is no doubt that my takeaways from the trip were so much more than I could have ever believed. Being at the village was an experience I will never forget. It was fascinating to see the craftsmanship and techniques displayed by the Khmer builders, and heartwarming to see the gratitude and excitement of the village children and the family whose lives we were changing. It was a grueling 4 days constructing the house in inexplicable humidity, through sweat, tears, and in one case blood. Don't worry, it was fine. We worked hard and overcame adversity. The result was a small timber shack with thatched walls and corrugated steel roof. It was far from any standard building we are so lucky to have here in Australia. However, when it was time to hand over the house, it was as if we had given the family the world. Extraordinary gratitude and joy was expressed by the families whose houses we built and the children of New Hope Cambodia. The reactions of all the people whose lives we touched filled myself and my peers with warmth and pride. Cambodia for me was without doubt an eye-opening experience. My biggest takeaway from the trip has been my broadened gratitude for the great life that I've been gifted in this country, where we have so much. It has also given me a profound appreciation of the incredible opportunities the school and its staff provides to students through not only the International Service Project, but also pathways into a successful future. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk a little bit into the project and what it looks like and what it means. And it's matured over the years. No longer thatched roofs, Charmaine, right? We've got a slightly more sturdy buildings now. But ultimately, the impact on the young people is actually a huge part of this whole experience. Yes, the work we do gives an incredible amount to the communities and the families in Siem Reap. Of course it does. That's why we do it. But also, our young people, your young people, also gain immeasurably in terms of their mindset, their view of the world, their broadened horizons, and their gratitude attitude, as we call it sometimes, their gratitude attitude to what they have and what others perhaps don't have. So I think, in my mind, it's yes, of course, we're there to give and to provide, but also our students and our staff and our partners gain an incredible amount too. Okay, I'll get into a little bit of the details in terms of what this is all about, and clearly, the fact that you're here tonight in your respective schools means that there's some interest. So we thank you for that first and foremost, and that you obviously come to find out more. Um, so I'll talk a little bit through a little bit of information, and but hopefully not overwhelm people with too many details tonight. To start off, where do we go? We obviously Cambodia, like I mentioned. So Cambodia, Southeast Asia, bordered by Thailand and Vietnam. Um, and we actually visit Siem Reap. So Siem Reap, as you can see on that map there on the right hand side, in that kind of northwest corner of Cambodia. Siem Reap. For those of you that don't know Cambodia as well, it is a city, but it's nowhere. It's nothing like the scale and the size of the city of Phnom Penh, the capital, which is huge. It's a smaller city. And an older city. It's actually the home of Angkor Wat, which is kind of one of the man-made wonders of the world, the old temples. So I sometimes say to students, "Oh, it's where Tomb Raider was filmed with Angelina Jolie," and now they look at me completely blank, Charmaine. I've got no idea what I'm talking about because
Generational thing.
it's the wrong generation that I'm talking to. But there's incredible temples there to visit and to enjoy as well. So, and of course, whilst we're there to work and to do projects, there's a lot of time for fun as well. It's not all work, work, work. Lots of cultural experiences and trips and excursions as well as the work that we do. However, like I say, we are there to work, as we say to the young people. It's not a holiday. We're there to give back and to get stuck into projects. So let's talk into those projects a little bit. As I said before, we've matured a little bit in terms of the homes that we used to do. So the homes that we used to build were kind of thatch and different things, and different materials. But speaking through with our partners, we found that there's a very limited lifetime for those houses that we used to build, and we thought, well, we want to build homes that will last, homes that will provide and be there for time to come, and with the help of our industry partners and sponsors, we were able to put up some more sturdy homes for people. So projects. So we will be. You can see the photos here. We'll be building homes, building 2 homes. I'd say at the very least, we'll be building 2 homes this year, and these are homes for, like I say, the critically poor. So putting it very simply, these are for people who the local village elders will select in terms of who goes into these homes. The village elders select the most worthy people, and there is kind of a contract around the education of the children that live in these homes and their families, etc. They have to continue education, which is part of it. But ultimately, they're probably either homeless completely or living in very dire circumstances, perhaps under a tarpaulin or sometimes under a piece of kind of sheet metal potentially. And they're moving from places where there may be large families with very, very little into a home, keeps the rain off their heads, and there's a fair bit of rain in Cambodia at times. That keeps the rain off their heads, and it has somewhere to give them privacy, to give them shelter, and to keep them safe, which is really important. So when we arrive, the concrete base is in. So some things happen before we get there. The materials have been delivered, the base has been put in, etc. But ultimately, beyond that, it's the job of the students, together with our staff and with our industry partners and Khmer builders that we work alongside, to build a home. So in that photo on the right hand side there, you can see some of the family in the middle and on the right. And then, numbers of members of staff wearing the kind of black shirts, staff and students in the middle, and the conveyor builders on the left-hand side. And it becomes a partnership. The family that we're building the home for is often on the property or on the land as we're building it, keen to be involved, offering food and different things to the young people, food and drink to the young people and staff and the builders as they do it. It's quite an experience of those days. An example of some projects. Okay, I've mentioned before as well that normally we are linked to New Hope Cambodia. Please feel free to look them up in terms of their website. So New Hope Cambodia also runs a school in Siem Reap that provides education and healthcare to the critically poor. So where we can, we also help the school with projects. Might be renovating classrooms. We've put in a training kitchen for people to learn how to cook and to bake, to give them employment opportunities for the future. And we've helped out with computers and cameras so they can teach photography, again, to try and give people opportunities for future employment. So ultimately, we'll help out doing what we can, wherever we can. That's our aim, is to help them as best as we can. But also, what is wonderful is that our young people have the opportunity to spend some time at the school, which they invariably enjoy. Right, Charmaine? I mean, they love it. They get time to spend time with the kids, practice their English, learn about the school day. There's been all kinds of activities and things that have taken place over the years. So that's a pretty special thing. All right, without further ado, I'll make a couple of introductions and a bit of information. So dates, let's start with the key dates. So it'll take place in the September school holidays. So that's the Monday the 21st through to Thursday the 1st of October. In the school holidays, there'll be two groups that will go at the same time. And will sometimes overlap in terms of their activities, but there will be two distinct groups, right? So group one will be led by Charmaine, who I've referenced a couple of times. I'll hand over to Charmaine in a moment. And Toowoomba, Ipswich and Sunny Coast schools will go in that group one team. And then group two, Peter Foster. Sure, Pete's got a camera, but we'll see if we can hand over to Pete in a moment. And Pete will lead Brisbane, Gold Coast and Redlands. And I'll let both of them kind of say a little bit about themselves in a moment. And then we'll also have in total 6 school staff from going on each group. So the leader plus another 5 members of staff. And that'll be a selection of people from different roles and different schools that'll join them, including a qualified carpenter like Matt that I introduced before on both of the groups. Okay, so at this point, what I'll do, Charmaine, I'll just hand over to you to introduce yourself, and maybe, I mean, you've been before, Charmaine, so please feel free to talk a little bit into your experience too.
Thanks, Lee. Yes, so welcome everybody, and thank you for your expressions of interest. This particular project is like no other. Having that opportunity to go internationally to a country who have suffered extreme poverty and who have learnt that education is the key out of poverty. And so to be a part of a school, but also a part of these trips is something that I really urge and encourage you to take seriously and to consider following through with an application. So a bit of my background, I've been teaching for many years, both in Australia and New Zealand. I joined the industry school in March 2024.
Best day of your life, Charmaine.
Yeah, it was. And was lucky enough to be invited along to my first Cambodian trip in the September of that year. Then last year, I was given the opportunity to lead one of the groups. And again, just having that experience and the ability to work with young people and see how life-changing it is for them as much as it is for the families who we gift these houses to. I think for me, one of my biggest takeaways is to see these families in extreme poverty, but will give you the shirt off their back. They are so kind and just giving, and love the fact that we go over there now. And as Lee said, in Siem Reap, even if you go out at night into a restaurant, people have been impacted by this community of New Hope, and they will talk to experiences of working with the industry school staff or with New Hope directly. So I feel very privileged to be asked again to lead a group. And as Lee has already mentioned, Toowoomba, Ipswich and Sunshine Coast will be the makeup of Group 1. So I encourage you to ask lots of questions tonight. There's a lot of staff on each of the campuses who are there to support any additional questions you might have in terms of the application. But again, it's a fabulous opportunity. So please make use of these chances that you have to really engage with something incredibly special that will leave such a positive impact on you and a positive mark for your future. So many of them at the end of the trip don't want to come home and they're already asking, can we go again? So it's opportunities that they can take up into the future as they grow into young adults and leave and start their own journey. So thank you, Lee. I hope that's been a little bit helpful at this
Beautiful.
stage.
Thanks, Charmaine. Thank you. And Pete, I don't know how well you fixed up for audio and video there, mate, but are you able to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Lee. And I too want to thank for the privilege of leading Group 2 and working and going for this great opportunity to take some wonderful young people overseas to Cambodia to build the houses and to learn a lot, not just about working together. So can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. Yeah.
I don't know whether my own group can hear me, so I'll just speak a bit louder for my group. A bit of a giggle out there. And also to the fact of making a difference in people's lives and watching the effect that has on our young people as they grow into adults and taking this for the rest of their lives. And I don't think it's something that they will ever forget when they do. I'm the principal of the Brisbane campus, and during my career of about 30 years, I think I've done, might show my age, maybe about 20 overseas trips for various things, but the ones that have got the greatest memories aren't the sporting ones and aren't the touring ones. It is the ones that you're giving something to somebody else, which you in return get 20-fold back in your heart to what the difference that you make. And this is a wonderful opportunity. So like Charmaine said, I think it'd be wonderful to put an application in and to have that experience to make your life, make some real difference to others and make a real difference in your own journey. Thanks, Lee.
Thanks, Pete. Good on you. Thank you, Peter. So yeah, that's Peter's it says the principal at Brisbane and Charmaine, the principal at Toowoomba, and then both of whom will be joined by a number of staff from across the organisation. And then, you know, there's one or two of us like myself who can't help themselves. I get out every year just to cheer everybody along, so I'll be there at some point too. Okay, I'm just gonna, before we go into a bit more detail, you know, Charmaine and Pete just talked about the impact that it has. You know, the whilst we are giving, you're also gaining and receiving so much in terms of what it does. And like Pete was saying, I've been in education for a little while, maybe not quite as long as Pete, which I'll wind him up about when I see him next. But it is incredible, you know, the power sometimes of these things. You know, people talk about education, and education happens in all kinds of ways, in all kinds of different means, often not in the classroom. Now, education, in my view, isn't all about classroom learning. In fact, the classroom has its part, but there's so much more to it, which is what the industry school's about. And probably one of the most profound moments of my entire career in education, and I think, Charmaine, I think I've shared this story with you before, but it's true. Like it absolutely goes to the core for me. I remember taking a group, it was a few years back, and you know, every morning we'd get on the little minibus in Siem Reap from the hotel, and the minibus would drive us out to build the house, and they'd work all day. And for any of the parents that have never been in a minibus with 20 young people, it's not normally very quiet. It's quite a noisy affair, right? Which is great. They're all chatting and they're having a laugh and they're doing different things and everybody's chatting away. And it was, it's great. And every morning you kind of chatting, and on the way back they're chatting. Fantastic, right? On the last day of the project, without giving too much away, because you'll need to experience it for yourself. On the last day of the project, we hand over the house. We hand over the, excuse me. I'm going to get emotional, shall I? I'm not going to get emotional. Okay. So we hand over the house to the families. There's a ceremony and things. Like I say, I won't give it away because it's quite special. But we hand over the house, and there was a Cambodian mother that spoke to the students. She knew a little English, and she spoke to all of the students, and she explained that she'd lost her husband to a road traffic accident. He was the main breadwinner. And as a consequence, both of her teenage children were having to work in the concrete factory. They'd had to leave school. They couldn't finish their education at this point, to work in the concrete factory to try and make enough money for them to survive, right? But with the house that they had and with the support they'd been given, that meant that these two children could return to school and finish their education. And she individually thanked every one of these students that was part of the build, And we got on the bus. We got on the minibus to drive home. It's a 30-minute trip back to the hotel, and students were totally silent. So 30 minutes, students didn't say a word. And I was sat in the front thinking, this is education. This is the students processing what has happened, what has just happened over that last week, what they have done, what all the fundraising was for, what all the hard work was for, the humidity and the sweat and all of those things were for, and they'd have their moments where they'd fallen out with people and when they're working and it's hard and all of those things that got around it. But, it wasn't a holiday, it was work. It was lots of fun as well, don't get me wrong. But I just thought on that minibus on the way back, I think for those 20 students, it all fell into place. That is something that will stay with me. That's, like I say, one of the most profound moments in my entire educational career. And it's hard to articulate, but it's probably why I'm so passionate about it. It's the impact that it can have on young people for the rest of their lives. Okay, without further ado, I'll snap myself into back into action. Right. So without further ado, I'm going to share a little bit of information, and then we'll take some questions, and then see how we go. So the starting point here is that the safety of your young people is absolutely our primary concern. I assure you. I have children of my own, and obviously, the primary thing as a parent and guardian is, my child going to be looked after, are they safe, etc. And this is huge. This is the only way that I can kind of talk through what we do is that we've been doing this for over 10 years now. Right? We wouldn't keep doing it if we didn't think it was a reasonable thing for us to do. So there's a small group that go out in April, and we do a kind of trip to visit where are we going to be working, what's that going to look like, and we check in make sure the hotel and the accommodation is appropriate, make sure that the work and the projects that we've got are lined up are appropriate and can be done, that we've got the right skill set to do it in terms of our industry partners, and we've got the materials and things that we need. Right. So that April visit, really important. We've got with that, then we do a risk assessment as a base of that, and that goes a health and safety kind of risk assessment and everything based on what we find in April, and that goes to the school board, the board of directors, and the board of directors approve the trip based on the plan that we've got. Okay. Also, we obviously keep a very close eye on Smart Traveller in terms of their kind of levels you can see on the right hand side in terms of how they kind of judge each country in terms of its safety, and we if it's not safe to go, if there's any reason why it's deemed that there's unsafe, there's any kind of political unrest, etc., then we won't go. And we keep an eye on that right the way through. But ultimately, what I need to say is Cambodia is a safe country. It is a safe country. Yes, it's a developing country, but in terms of our links, there is international healthcare and an international hospital, which is the one that we use should we need it. And we've got the right links and the right contacts there to ensure the safety of the young people in our care. That is number one for us, just to reassure everybody. And I ask you to do your own research. Go to Smart Traveller, check out Cambodia, see what it says. And in terms of what's needed, if you're going to put an application in, and as Charmaine and Pete said, we really encourage you to do so. But you will need a current passport, and that you'll need that to have that in place April. So we need to see that you've got a current passport, which must be valid for 6 months from the departure date. It's got to have at least 6 months plus validity beyond that date in September. I'll talk about fundraising and things in a moment, but the fundraising, etc., doesn't cover the money for incidentals and dinners and different things. So American dollars, food and drinks and things are incredibly cheap. So you really don't need to take a lot of money. But if people want to take money for gifts and different things, then again, that's up to them. And again, with the right haggling technique, they're pretty cheap too. So it's not a huge amount of money that is required to take with you. In fact, students invariably, in my experience, take more money than they need. I'm not sure quite how many Rolexes people need to bring back with them, but they do. So a little bit of money for incidentals and dinners. And we'll share more information for those once we've been through the application process, of course. But we have travel insurance, and we'll share what that covers. But some people want to take extra travel insurance. We have insurance that covers certain things, doesn't cover everything. So as we say to the students, don't take your iPad. Our insurance doesn't cover it. That's on you if you want to take your iPad. But some do want to get additional insurance. In terms of vaccinations, again, we'll talk more about this in detail once we've been through the selection process. But the vaccinations is at the discretion of the family. Okay, so we can point you in the right direction in terms of travel doctor, but speak to your healthcare professional, speak to your GP, and some will advise different things, and you make the decision based on your own research in terms of the vaccinations that you want to get. Okay, so I'm going to move into fundraising next. Okay, so fundraising, before I share the details, fundraising is a part of this. It is, right? And before I get into the details of the fundraising, I'll share something very briefly in my experience. Right? So the thing that is difficult for me, for Charmaine, for Peter, it's difficult for us to know is where the fundraisings come from. So is it possible that for some young people that go, their parents pay the whole lot? Yep. Very difficult for us to know. But what I would suggest, or what my experience has found, is the young people that really lean into fundraising, the ones that do the work, that do the volunteering, that arrange the fundraising galas and raffles, and the ones that put the time and effort into doing it, they're the ones that get so much more back when it comes to actually visiting the country. The ones that have worked for it, the ones that have taken time to explain why they're raising money and what for. That's where the connection comes from. That's my personal opinion. Charmaine, would you agree on?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can speak certainly from Toowoomba's perspective, who I'm just going to do a private plug here, who were the top fundraisers last year. But yes, those that actually spent the time out, doing the long hours or selling the raffles, as Lee said, up early at the Bunnings barbecues, they are the ones that I felt anyway, so got a lot more out of it. It's too easy. you know, they don't really acknowledge to the extent perhaps that they could have, as opposed to working hard. Yeah.
Okay, great. And I'll come back to you in a moment, Charmaine, just share some examples, maybe some of the things that students did. Now, that said, like I say, I'll come on to the fundraising slide in a moment. We do help, of course.
Yeah.
Right? Of course we help young people. But for some young people, they find it really hard. You know what? That's part of life. That's part of life. Some things are not easy when you get started. Fundraising is not easy, right? However, as we say to all our young people, they've got the best thing in the world in terms of asking. If you think about a young person saying, you know, I'm in year 11 and I want to take 2 weeks out of my school holiday to raise money to travel to Cambodia to build houses for the critically poor people in Cambodia. Will you help? I think you'll find a lot of people inclined to help.
Yeah. So
that the purpose is strong, but it takes a bit of courage just to step over the line and ask. We help in all kinds of ways. So let's just come to that quickly. So fundraising, as I said, is a key part of the project and the development of a young person and their character. That's our view. Okay, now I need to be really clear on some things from the outset. The fundraising totals are the responsibility of each young person. Each young person gets a target. It's not a school target. It's a young person target. They have to raise their own money. Okay. I'll share in a moment some milestones, and they are non-negotiable and they're critical. So clearly, there's a lot that goes into this in terms of flights and the booking of hotels and different things. And the industry school cannot be in the position to take on the cost of those young people that are not fundraising. That is just not a position that we're in. So people need to do their own fundraising and they need to hit the targets so that we can make the payments to hotels, to flights, to everything else. And therefore, failure to meet a milestone will result in the young person losing their place. And again, we say this right from the outset so that people know. If you don't meet the milestone, you can lose your place. Now, I'll come into a moment that there will be more applications than there are places. There will be, right? And what we have to do is to be really fair to those that are not selected, is to create a waiting list of those people that can get in next. Tricky exercise, you know, it's disappointing for some. But what I need to say is if you're not going to meet your fundraising totals or you're not going to be able to do it, then we will offer your place to somebody else. And the fundraising is non-refundable, clearly. Right? So just got to be trying to be really open about that from the get-go. So the monies raised cover some of the young person expenses, but then obviously contribute to the project cost. So you know, the build, the house build, the school projects, etc. All fundraising is non-refundable. All right, so in terms of fundraising, like I say, we do help out. There's all kinds of things that we do. We set up fundraising accounts for people, online accounts. So please, you know, please don't do that. You know, your application is the next stage. We have had some people very keen that before they've even been selected to start fundraising. Let one thing at a time. You've got to be selected first, and then we set you up with an online fundraising account. Okay, we have a connection to a certain account which takes a much smaller proportion than some of the other accounts and things that are there available. Some take up to 10% of the fundraising, which is a lot. Okay, so we've got a format and a way of doing it that means that the percentage is a lot lower than that. So we set that up. We give young people QR codes and links to their accounts. They get a letter of endorsement from myself as the CEO so that they can use to show people that they're doing it on behalf of the school, etc., etc. So we do help, and we have people on every school that can help young people, not to do their fundraising, but to help them to arrange or to set up their fundraising, give them advice. So what does fundraising look like? There's been all kinds of stuff, weird and wonderful, over the years. Charmaine, did you want to share some Toowoomba kind of stories?
And I think the hardest part is actually just getting going, setting up a number of these types of things. Just sharing some of the things that our young people have done in the past has obviously been raffles. And I mentioned the Bunnings barbecues. They're always great, difficult to get into. So that could be one that you want to start to consider once you have been accepted. In Toowoomba, we have a number of events. For example, Farm Fest is sort of run in conjunction with Rotary up here. So we work with our local Lions and Rotary clubs if they're having an event that we might help with parking, and they then will donate money to each of the young people who have helped with those. One of our big events that our young people organised themselves was a trivia night, and that was hugely successful. So we will probably go down that line again. And that's just some examples. So there can be car washes, there can be, I've seen movie nights where you hire a theatre and a show and do sort of interval type lollies and drinks. So it's as broad as your imagination. So as Lee said, staff will be able to support that, but please really know you are the driver of that fundraising. They are not there to do it for you. They each have various roles in the school, so that is their primary job. But at the same time, we are there to help and answer questions and support with things at a local level should you need that. So again, they're just some ideas, but be creative. Be creative in how you can look to fundraise money. One thing I would say is you can't set up GoFundMe pages on your own, that type of thing. That there's certain rules and regulations even around some raffles and things. But for the moment, we won't go into that sort of detail, but just know that you are largely responsible for that fundraising and how it's a critical part of what we do. So if you are going to commit to that, it is for the period of time. And as Lee said, there are milestones, so you don't have to come up with 5,000 in the first, couple of months. You do have targets to reach along the way. So I hope that's been a little bit helpful. Yeah.
Thank you. Charmaine, important question. Very important question. Bunnings barbecue.
Yes.
Onions first?
Well, now this is a debate. Like the New Zealand Australian pavlova.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, the Toowoomba Trivia Night was a great success. There's all, like Charmaine says, all kinds of different ways of doing things. Right. We've had like young people that have raised the entire amount from mowing lawns.
Yeah.
I mean, that's some commitment to mowing lawns, but one young person, that's what they did. They did it every week, every weekend, as many as they could, evenings, just mowing lawns, washing cars and mowing lawns, and kinds of different things. A lot of young people do get some help from family and friends, and that's great, but also, employers, they've spoken to their employer, and when they've done kind of work experience or they're in a school-based apprenticeship or whatever it may be, and see if their employers can help. So kinds of different ways. All right, I'll keep us moving, conscious of time. Thanks, Charmaine, for that. And so we kind of alluded to the cost before. So there's a fundraising total of $5,000, same as last year. So that covers the return airfares and taxes. Includes a combination of meals, that's the breakfast and the lunch on almost every day, plus a final team dinner. So when I say almost every day, it's on the project days. On the project days, and you get the lunch included. There's 1 or 2 days where it may not be included the evening dinner. Generally, young people are buying that for themselves, apart from the celebration dinner. In reality, you can get a really good dinner for not a lot of money. So, and again, the food is good. The restaurants are good. It's not something that you need to worry about in terms of health from that perspective. Food is beautiful, actually. So, Number of cultural activities that I mentioned before, they're covered as well. It's not all work. We'll go to the temples, floating village, we do all kinds of different fun stuff. Transportation around Cambodia, so the minibuses and different things. Although generally young people, it's the tuk-tuks that people enjoy the most, even though not the air-conditioned bus. But there's all kinds of different ways that you'll travel around Cambodia, which is fun. A contribution to the project costs, obviously, you know, to build the homes and to fix up the schools and different things that we do. Your Cambodian visa and insurance from the school. As I said before, some people want more insurance to cover other things, but there's the school insurance. And again, once you've been through the process of application, you're successful. We have somewhere in the region of about 6 to 8 meetings, I think, Charmaine, if I remember rightly, with family and young people. And we take all of these things in turn, you know, what to take and uniform and insurance and all these things. So you don't feel like you need to know all of the details tonight. That all follows. There's lots of meetings that take place should you be successful. In terms of key milestones, as we said before, this is the kind of really important top bit, I suppose, right now. Is so I'll talk about the selection process in a moment. But the first milestone is $800, which is a non-refundable amount, which would need to be received by the 9th of March. That secures our airlines. Kieran is negotiating airfares as best as she can, but I think we're pretty good, Kieran. But obviously, we need to lock those in. So that's a non-refundable deposit by the 9th of March of $800. And then we have these kind of end of month targets or milestones towards the trip for the fundraising amounts, etc. And again, we'll get into the details of how that works once we've gone through the selection process. But ultimately, what we do is we look at the fundraising total. We look at the fundraising total time and time to make sure that it's actually hit the milestone. Okay, so that's the key milestone dates. In terms of selection, be really clear. I think we have had about 100 expressions of interests, and there are 36 spaces, ladies and gentlemen. There are 6 spaces per school to start off. Now you might be looking around the room thinking there's far more than 6 people. So what happens is there are 6 places per school. If a school does not use up all of those places, they then get shared to the other schools in the same group, if that makes sense, right? So, but just to be clear, 100 EOIs, 100 expressions of interest, 36 places. So, don't let that put you off. Just let that encourage you to get your application in, right? So complete the application by Thursday the 26th, which is a week today. Okay, you'll get the application form after tonight, Karen, I think. Thumbs up, I think, yeah. Get the application process straight after tonight. Those people that have expressed their interest, and we'll talk a little bit about how you kind of demonstrate our values, and we'll then look at your work experience or your apprenticeship feedback from your employers in terms of attitude, behaviour, etc. And we'll reach out to get a reference from one of your teachers or your IC, and just around the suitability for the trip. And then from there, we will make a selection. That will be selecting the 6 from each school, but also the waiting list beyond those 6. Okay, so as I say, you know, a lot of people who aren't selected initially, if somebody drops out because they've not made the milestones or for whatever reason changed their mind, then it can go through to the next person up to a point. And then we'll be saying for the week after that to make the non-refundable deposit by the 9th of March. And again, anybody who doesn't make the non-refundable deposit, we then make an offer to the next person on the list. That's the way that works. So, ladies and gentlemen, almost within my hour, got 2 minutes left. I'm going to go slightly over, apologies. So call to action, just to remind, apply by the 26th. We then select by the 2nd, then inform you, and then you pay the deposit by the 9th. So 26th, 2nd, 9th. Okay. All right, so we'll go to questions in a moment. What I'm going to do just before I do that is just to share a very brief video from 2025 I really hope that the audio is working. We have tested it, so cross your fingers, Charmaine, and we'll see how we go on. But I'll share the video and then we'll take a few group questions, and then obviously there's time on the campuses to take questions after that. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. One thing I'll just add before we finish, obviously you can see there's a lot of building work and different things. And if you're a young person sitting there and you're not looking at the building trade, that's absolutely fine. There's lots of young people that aren't carpenters and other sparkies and plumbers that go along. That is not part of the selection criteria, just to be really, really clear. Anybody with the right attitude, right, Charmaine? It's the attitude that we're looking for,
100%.
not the carpentry skills. Don't worry, we'll actually train you up and prepare you for the work that you need to do. So that's fine. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to pause there in terms of the presentation. And any questions? So, like I say, in a moment I'll hand back to the campuses, and then each of the campuses can perhaps answer some of them. But there are any general questions as a group? Anybody got anything pressing they want to ask at this point?
Must have covered it all, Lee.
I know. It's a stunning silence. Nobody? No. Kieran, are you all good there on the Gold Coast? Give us a thumbs up, Kieran. Oh, well, I'll pop in a minute and say good day. Toowoomba?
Yeah.
No questions. All right. That's great. It's fine. Okay. As I said, the questions will come, I'm sure, as you work through the process. People kind of get into that. Okay, what do we need to pack and take and all those things? But that can all come later. So I suppose, needless to say, that's probably the end of the presentation. I thank you all for your attendance and for your interest. Hopefully, thanks, Pete. Thanks. Hopefully you can tell that we, as a school, are incredibly passionate about this. This is part of our DNA, as I said before. However, before I let everybody go, there is one last thing that needs to happen. And I can see it, Toowoomba. I can see 3 young people in front of me, and God, you're going to be cringing in a minute, guys. In fact, I've met you on the left. What's your name on the left? I've met you before. You, yeah. Hey, no, you. What's your name? Who's that, Charmaine?
Well, I'm in a different room, Lee. So Sarah's in with the,
definitely. I've met you before. I'm trying to say, hey, how are you? Sorry. Yeah. What's your name?
Oh, God, how are you?
How you doing?
Yeah, great.
Yeah, good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, good. Sorry, that was just, I think we met last time I was up at Toowoomba, I think, if I remember rightly. It's getting carried away there, mate. But I'm glad you're interested in coming to Toowoomba, to Cambodia. So one last thing to do before we finish, and you are all going to cringe, but it's going to happen. So I need everybody to come off mute. Charmaine knows where I'm going with this. So please, can you come off mute? If you're on mute, Sunny Coast, Ipswich, Brisbane, thank you. Redlands, if you can. I know you've had some technical challenges, but you need to. Sunny Coast, Tim, you need to come off mute, mate. You need to come off mute. Okay. He's working it out. So, there is something that we do. All right, there is something that we do here. And if you are selected, you're going to be doing this. You'll do this about 50 times before you even get to Cambodia. All right. We have a catch cry. We have a mantra. We have something. I don't know what you'd call it, but we have a kind of a guiding philosophy for this whole thing. And in fact, it's probably on the back of Charmaine's shirt.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, but I don't know.
Yeah, there we go. Right. So you see there, it says I'm in. Right. This is it. This is happening to one. I know you're cringing, right? But this is happening. So before we finish, on a count of 3, what everybody's got to do is shout I'm in as loudly as they possibly can. Look at the faces, Johnny. Right. So this is what is happening. It's happening, people. This is going to happen, right? This is going to happen. So on the count of 3, I will count 1, 2, 3, and then everybody shouts I'm in. And then we do this all the way up to Cambodia, and we do it all around Cambodia. It's what happens, right? Are you prepared? Ipswich, are you ready? Ipswich ready, Andrew? Yeah? Gold Coast ready? Gold Coast, if I can't hear you from my office, you're in trouble. I'm going to come in and have a word. Right. Okay, so we'll give it a go. On a count of 3, I'm watching Toowoomba. I can see you 3 right in front of the camera. So on a count of 3, I'm in. Okay, is everybody ready? Okay.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. I'm in! Pretty good, but I think we can do better. We're going to try one more go and then I'll let you go. Okay. Bit louder, Toowoomba. I should be able to hear you from here as well. All right. So, the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. I'm in! That's better. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. I'll sign off. Leave it to your questions on your campuses. We look forward to seeing your applications come through. Good on you all. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.